Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about why I believe Mahito is one of the greatest villains in anime and easily the greatest villain in Jujutsu Kaisen. In this video I will be talking about three main aspects of what I believe makes Mahito a really good villain. Firstly, I will be talking about his actions. Secondly, the type of villain he is. And lastly, his relationship with the main character. I forgot to mention this at the start, but this video will contain spoilers for the Jujutsu Kaisen manga. So if you have not read the manga, please read the manga before watching the video. Thank you, and let's get to it. So, in terms of evil acts, Mahito has a lot of on and off screen evil acts. By off screen evil acts, I mean the various people we know he's killed, but we don't really know how many and in what ways he's killed them. For example, all the transfigured bodies he's obtained that he uses in fights have had to come from somewhere. So he's probably killed a lot of people off screen that we don't know about and we don't know the number of. In terms of on screen villainous acts, Mahito also has quite a few of those because he is very famously killed both Junpei and his mother. He's killed Nanami. He may or may not have killed Nobara. It really hasn't been confirmed by the mangaka, and we haven't really seen Nobara in the anime after that. So I can't really say. But he has a good number of named people he's either actively harmed or killed. And so the things that make his actions really villainous are linked to the second point that I'm going to make, which is the type of villain he is. So, the type of villain that Mahito is, I like to call these types of villains they're complete bastards because there's nothing redeeming about their qualities. There's nothing nice about them, there's nothing chivalrous about them. They are just complete and utter bastards. In most anime, writers tend to give villains some sort of redeeming quality, or at least something that can vaguely justify their actions. It doesn't have to be a good way to justify their actions, it just has to do it. For example, a redeeming quality in a villain would be Thanos. He wants to wipe out half the population of the world, but he doesn't do it because he's evil. He does it because he thinks there's a problem with overpopulation in the universe and that people are suffering because of it. And he believes the only way to solve that problem is to eliminate half of the population. Another example of now a villain being justified is Griffith in Berserk. But unlike Thanos, his reasons are completely selfish. But what it does is justify why he did what he did. The reader will understand and say, okay, while that's a really horrible thing to do, I can understand why you did it. Now, in the case of Mahito, he does what he does not really to achieve a goal or a grand purpose or because he has a sad backstory like pain or something. He does it because he likes it. He does it because he wants to do it. There's no other way to describe him. He didn't need to kill Junpei. He didn't need to rope his mom into it. He didn't need to kill Nanami. That wasn't a part of the plans of the curses. He just did it because he wanted to mess with Yuji. He liked to see him suffer. He's a sadist, and that's him as a curse. There's nothing about him being rehabilitated or him coming back later and trying to help. The only way to solve that problem is to kill him. And I very rarely see this in anime. And even then, props to how Geiki wrote it, because a lot of the time, when really evil people are introduced in anime, they're introduced in such a way that when they show up, they just have to do something excessively evil to show you how big and bad they are. Or we'll have a character on the side explain that they're really evil and we just have to trust them. But with Mahito's introduction, he was given a very normal introduction, and we were slowly shown that this guy is an irredeemable bastard, and it it's not forced down your throat. You're made to come to this conclusion. You see it for yourself. It's not shouted to you like this person is evil, he's the bad guy. Because a lot of us thought Sukuna would be the big bad guy, but in my opinion, he's more of an antagonist than Sukuna. And I'll argue that in the third point because I feel Mahito has done more for Itadori's character growth than Sukuna did, but that's for the later parts. But anyway, as I was saying, there was no hints that he was going to be this type of bastard. And it just comes as a shock. And so that moment when Yuji is like, I'll kill you, I totally understood the feeling. I wanted Mahito to die. I hated him. And that's on Gege's writing. He wrote a really good villain. And he's the perfect mix of a powerful villain but a cockroach like villain because he just sometimes can't die. You want him to die, but he's not dying. He's escaped death so many times. And when his demise finally comes, versus him and Todo, Yuji and Todo, I mean, it was amazing. It was the perfect climax. And the payoff was immense for that because I was like, finally, this guy is getting what he deserves. And that satisfaction I felt when I saw his downfall means that Gege absolutely killed it when he wrote Mahito. And yeah, that's why I think the type of villain he is. And also, that could be like point 2.5, the way Gege wrote him. That was very, very important because he's just so, in my opinion, integral to how things happen in the show that he's just, it's a masterpiece. I don't know what else to tell you. It was very well written. The final thing that I believe makes Mahito a great villain is how he triggers a lot of very significant character growth for Yuji. Because at the start, we can see that Yuji is a bit naive. But Yuji's first real reality check is against Mahito. When he kills Junpei, Yuji loses his mind and he just goes berserk and wants to kill him. And he has to deal with the fact that his involvement may or may not have caused Junpei's downfall. And so you see him battling with it. And then once it reaches the Shibuya arc, Mahito catches Yuji at his lowest point, where after Sukuna showed him that he killed people and Yuji is feeling very guilty about it, he's trying to make up for it. Yuji comes across Mahito killing Nanami. And at that point, they're fighting, and you can just see Yuji break down mentally. And I just love Todo so much. And people tend to love Todo, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. It's just that thing for, well, what's your favorite type of lady? And people tend to meme that out. But genuinely, I think he's funny, but not in a way that affects the tension that's built up in a scene. Because when Todo came to save Yuji, I was just smiling throughout. And it didn't feel like it was comedic, but Todo just puts a smile on my face. Anyway, I digress. Mahito attacked Yuji when he was at his lowest, and you could see Yuji losing hope and just giving up, and you could see him about to give in to the death. That he just dies, and maybe Sukuna will be weaker, and it will be better and safer for everyone else. But then Todo comes and reminds him what Nanami said. And in my opinion, Nanami is more of Yuji's mentor than Gojo is. Because he's the one, again, like Mahito is with Sukuna, who's influenced the most growth. He tells him that this is a sorcerer's life. There is no sorcerer who lives without tragedy. And he realizes that he has to move on. He has to accept that these things can happen and that all he can do is keep moving forward. And while this isn't the complete character growth of Yuji's character, it's the most significant growth he's undergone. And this character growth he's gone through is closely intertwined with Mahito as a character. And that's very rare in anime, at least in my opinion. A lot of the time, the villains just show up and they have a very hard fight. And sure, one or two things may change or they may realize something during the fight. But rarely do you see that this villain has changed this person the way Mahito has changed Itadori, because without Mahito, Yuji would be a different person. A good example showing the differences in this thing is just looking at most popular shonen. They have periodic villains that don't really have much of an impact in a character's growth. Maybe it serves to power them up in terms of the power system of the world, but rarely does it make them grow. Think of Naruto fighting most Naruto villains. He doesn't really grow as a character. Naruto's ideology stays pretty much the same throughout the series, and it's mostly just him convincing the villains to buy into his ideologies. And what this means is that none of the villains really catalyze any growth within Naruto, and it's mostly left to the mentor type characters to do all of this stuff. And so, with most shonen, what they tend to do is have many one off villains and then a big bad villain at the end that will have the final showdown with the hero, who's usually the boss of all the one off villains or like manipulating them. So in Naruto, it would be Momoshiki, I think is the name. I'm not sure about that. But what this means is that the villains as characters rarely get much development because there's so many of them. And even the big bad at the end doesn't really show up until the later arcs. What they usually do is show up at the start, then disappear somewhere till now the hero is ready to face them. And this problem is not there with Mahito. And while you can tell that he's not the big bad at the end of the Jujutsu Kaisen plot, he's still very well written and very well developed. And he's a villain that has meaning to the story. He can't just be replaced by another person because what he does is only something that Mahito can do. And that is why I believe he is a very good villain. Now, I could go on and on more about Mahito as a villain, but that would just be going into greater detail about what I had said before, and so I'll end the video here. Thank you very much for watching my video till the end. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. It really helps me out. That will be all from me. Thank you and goodbye.